The show that's all Patriots, all football, all year long. The trades, the signings, the front office moves. This is the show that has it all covered. Sunday Kickoff, brought to you by Surfside Iced Tea and Vodka, Prolo Therapy, Blue Sky Restoration Contractors, and Hooters. Now, here are Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle.
All righty then. Good morning and welcome into the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff. Alex Barth, Cerrone Battle, Kyle Fabrizio behind the glass on this Sunday morning, March 30th. Only 5 more to go, boys. 5 more, really 4 more, and then we'll have the post-draft show, the finale. That one's easy. I'm like rolling through at that point, but we're hitting the home stretch here, Cerrone. We're hitting the home stretch of this offseason. What is it? Tuesday is April? Right? We're within a month. Yeah. We're getting down to it. It's crunch time.
It's turned into a real, I wouldn't say real, but it's turned into an exciting offseason. It's turned into, something pretty interesting for this team, for this fan base. So, I can't wait to see what else happens as we continue the rest of this month.
Look, we'll see ultimately how this all works out, but they've given us a lot to talk about. Yeah. It's not like last year we had the quarterback. So we were never short on content, but that was all we did last year. Was quarterback. There wasn't much else, the coaching stuff at the beginning after Bill, but that was kind of it. We're all over the map this year, and it was mostly defense to start. But then we get the news this week. At the beginning of the week, Stefon Diggs signing with the New England Patriots as the Patriots continue restoring their roster. This Restoring the Roster segment is brought to you by Blue Sky Restoration Contractors. If your home or business is damaged by a property disaster, call Blue Sky first. With locations across New England, they'll take care of everything from beginning to end. Visit GoBluSky.com. That's B-L-U, no E, BLUSky.com. Blue Sky Restoration, restoring your property and your life for a brighter tomorrow. Stefon Diggs, New England Patriot. Cerrone, how do you feel about that?
Well, I'm glad they got it done, but I'm surprised that the length of the deal. I would say last time we was talking, it was rumors of the 1 year, $16 million type deal, and to find out that it was multi-years. And the fact that they got it done, and I understand we can go back and forth about what he can do. But what he has left physically, what people think about him, on the sidelines, off the field, all that other stuff. I'm happy for them that they went and got the guy. They say, hey, it's a chance we're willing to take. We got to swing here. We got to swing big here. And I'm glad they went and got their guy. I'm glad he signed with the Patriots. I think that's a good look for them around the league. And I'm just glad overall that they got this done. How it works out over time will tell. But I'm glad they went out and they addressed their need. They targeted their guy. They got their guy. They closed the deal and got their guy. Got him in the building, closed the deal. So I'm happy for them that they got it done. I don't know how it works out, 7 months from now, but I'm glad they went out and got their guy.
Well, I don't even know. You talked about the contract, that this is one like they definitively lost. And we had talked about this, and it's still true, right? At a certain point, they were going to have to understand they maybe weren't going to get the best contract and go out and overpay a player. Yeah. The initial number is pretty eye-popping. 3 years, $69 million. Like I audibly said, wow, alone by myself when I saw that. But then you get the details right. $26 million guaranteed. It sounds like it's a year-to-year deal, certainly, and out after the first 2 years. They can get out after the first year as well. They'll eat a little bit, but it's not an unrealistic amount. So it's a win-win. Right, I saw some people where it's $69 million for a receiver coming off a torn ACL. If he gets near that $69 million, like nobody's going to be complaining. Yeah, there's $500,000 in incentives, at each level. I think it's 70, 80, 90, 100, or 80, 90, 100, 110 catches, something like that. There's another $500,000 up to $2 million bonus for yards. So and that's each year. Right. So there's $12 million of that if he's like a 1,000-yard plus receiver all 3 years, which is great. That would absolutely be worth it. So
that's right.
I think what the Diggs signing represents to me, and you're going to hear me gush about it a good amount on the show because I do like the move. We are, relatively speaking, I want to be clear about that, about where the team is right now. T. Higgins, and they never had a shot, but T. Higgins would have been a better addition. DK Metcalf would have been a better addition. I will take Diggs over Cooper Kupp. I've said that. Over some of the other guys that are available right now. Keenan Allen. Yep, Amari Cooper. Debo, honestly, I think this is a better move than adding Debo.
Yeah.
Because so it would have been great if they could just get the guy, no questions, obviously. Diggs has questions, and mainly it's the injury. I'm not worried about the off-the-field stuff, and we can get to what he said on Friday. I thought he did a really good job on Friday at his introductory press conference. That aside, like, the injury is the question, and it's a legitimate question. He's 31 years old, coming off a torn ACL. I know that there's that report from Schefter that he might be back week 1. That would be, I think, about a 9-month turnaround, because he's not going to go from 0 practices to playing week 1. That would involve him, I would assume, coming back at least at the end of camp for a couple of weeks to get on the same page with Drake May. So I don't know about that. Like, there's questions there. But if he is healthy, he is on paper the wide receiver we've been wanting the Patriots to add for a few years now. He is a guy that when he is out there is going to dictate coverage, is going to be able to win when defenses are focusing on him and opening things up for other players on the field. This is how they had to get that guy. Diggs is better. It's a lot better than not signing anybody. So I like this move. I think there's upside. There's ceiling to it. It very well might not work out. And they're going to have to eat some money and go on from there. And even in the long term, right? If they'd added Higgins, that box is checked. If they'd added Metcalf, 26, 27 years old, that box is checked. We're still going to be doing wide receiver in the draft next year. This is a bridge, even if it is a very good bridge. But if he works out, Cerrone, best wide receiver since the Patriots had Edelman, and I don't know that it's close. Jacoby Myers had a couple solid seasons in there, but there's legitimate upside with this move.
Yeah, it is. And you're right. He is the best since Edelman. Healthy Edelman. Peak Edelman. He's the best you've had since then, and I don't think it's even close. And I think what he does when he's out there, if he's out there week 1, that's amazing. And I think that if he's out there week 1, I think they got to steal, put it like that. I think the thought that we all had was he'd be available around Halloween or something like that, mid-October. But if you can get this guy and he can play a full season with Drake May, okay, now you really have something. And one thing I was going to add, you was naming the guys that could have been available, whatever. Yeah. You heard the talks of somebody like Brandon Ayuk coming off the similar injury, I think around a similar time. I know he's younger, but now you're paying him, what does he get, $30 million a year or something like that?
It would depend how they figure out the money with San Francisco. I will say on Ayuk, Diggs, and look, I haven't seen the medicals but reading everything that's out there, best I can tell, with Diggs, it was the ACL, that's it. And there wasn't any more extent. As far as ACL injuries go, it wasn't that bad. Ayuk, I believe, also tore some other ligaments and things like that. So it's not
ACL, MCL, something like that.
MCL too. Yeah. So I'll pull it up here in a second. But you're trading off the age for Ayuk's injury was more severe, and that's why with Diggs, like, I don't know, I'd be pretty surprised if he's back week 1. Like, the record, if you want to call it that, is Adrian Peterson, 8 months. And he won an MVP the next year, which we don't talk nearly enough about how impressive that is. Just as an aside. Edelman, I think, was like 9 months, and he had a pretty solid season after, around the same age. I've seen some people make that comparison, so that's encouraging. It would be an aggressive timeline. It's not impossible, but it would be a very aggressive timeline for Diggs to be back week 1. I think you look at earlier, if he's really ahead of schedule, maybe he comes back at the end of camp very loosely, opens the season, IR designated a return, and then he's back in early October, I think is the best realistic scenario.
Yeah, and I think what the team does to start the season will dictate that too. It's like, okay, if you can, the schedule, I would say the schedule is favorable. It's easier than last year. And you see a lot of people looking at that like, we can win some winnable games here. If they start out winning a few games, it's like, okay, we can push him back, another week. We don't have to rush him back. You know what I'm saying? If they come out pretty aggressive. But look, I just think what I'm saying about him and Ayuk, people talking about the money. Well, you'd have been paying more money, I think, for a guy who with the worst injury, even though he's younger. But Ayuk, unlike Diggs, we've seen Diggs in different situations still produce. We see him as the second option produce. We've seen him as the number 1 guy produce. He's dominant. In Minnesota, he was doing his thing. Buffalo, he was doing his thing. Ayuk, we all had questions of what he looked like without the offense that he had around him. And last season, you saw some of the injuries on offense before he got hurt, and his numbers were way down last season. And it was like, man, what would that look like if he was playing for the Patriots right now in their situation? But all in all, look, I think they got the best guy that was available. I think he fits a huge need. I think would be good for the younger guys to learn from or whatever and pick up different things in that room, make it easier on Drake May, give him a different target other than the tight ends. And I think he just kind of, like a basketball player, kind of spaces the floor for everybody else and gives everybody else an opportunity to eat. Now, I think his thing is people look at him as his fiery guy on the sidelines, whatever. I think he just wants to win football games. I don't think he just wants 12 catches and lose. I think he wants to win a football game. So if everybody's eating and they're winning games, I think he'll be happy with that. Similar to the way he was in Houston last year. He had good numbers, but he understood, man, with Tank Dell, Nico Collins, we're all going to eat here as long as we're winning games. And I think that's all that's going to really matter to him. So if they come out winning enough and, he gets his touches, everybody else eats, I think he'll be fine. I think there'll be a pretty solid offense.
Real quick, 49ers.com back in February noted that Ayuk tore his ACL, MCL, and other ligaments. Jesus. That's what it says. So, yeah, obviously, doesn't mean he can't come back, but a more significant injury. Yeah. You talked about some of the leadership stuff. I'll have a piece up, probably going to hit publish during this break. It's pretty much written, about kind of how Ayuk talked about that on Friday, what he wants to do for Drake May, what he wants to do for the younger receivers. I thought he came across like a player that has learned a lot about leadership and about his role as a voice in a locker room over the course of his career. He was a captain in Buffalo with a young quarterback in Josh Allen, captain in his first year last year in Houston. I thought he said all the right things, right? It's one thing to say that. You still got to act on it. But I liked a lot of what he said about, in particular, he was asked how he can help the young guys. And he kind of pushed off the X and O stuff. He said, yeah, the X and O's are there. He talked about teaching them how to deal with the highs and lows of the NFL, which, boy, does that sound like something this group could use. What did you make of that, or just anything that stood out to you from what he said on Friday?
Well, the first thing that stood out was the things he was saying, whatever. But I'm wondering, did this type of injury scare him? Like, did it come with a little humbleness? Like, you know what? This thing could end tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Now it's like, the highs and lows. That's a low of low to watch your season end like that. You go to a team, Super Bowl, expectations, and then bam, it's just like that. It's done. Didn't you watch what happened to Tank Dell? That crazy injury he had in that game. And you're sitting there in a room, a couple guys like, man, Nico Collins was coming off a bad injury. And you're all sitting around like, man, this thing could end tomorrow. Did it change his perspective? And did it kind of humble him? 30 years old, bad injury. You know what? Let me not slow down a little bit, but let me understand what's really going on here and understand this is a privilege and not my right. And I think that type of information he can pass on to the younger guys. Like, hey, man, this thing can end tomorrow. You can get released tomorrow. And looking at this Patriots wide receiver room, there's going to be some guys that are going to get left off this team if they go out and draft some guys, which we all expect. Pick up another veteran. You just added the kid from Buffalo. You added Stefon Diggs. You add one in the draft. All of a sudden, that wide receiver room, you're all looking around like, man, which one of us is going to go? So I think having somebody to come in with a little more perspective on what this NFL life is really all about, I think would help these guys, not just the wide receivers, but that whole offense if they're all around, or around him enough.
So he's actually, I was looking this up yesterday. Again, will be in the piece that will be up in about 10 minutes. He's their second most experienced player on offense now. In terms of games played, in terms of years. Morgan Moses has him beat. Morgan Moses played 166 games. Mm-hmm. Diggs has played, it's just over 140. And then Austin Hooper's in the 130s. Those are their three most. But Diggs he's the veteran in the room.
Yeah.
He's the veteran in the room. And if he can embrace that role, which it sounds like he did in Houston, if he can embrace that role, look, he's got to produce on the field, period, full stop. But if he can also bring some professionalism and get that offensive side of the ball going, especially the wide receiver room, and then obviously you want him working with Drake as well. And he mentioned he's excited to work with Drake because of the similarities with Josh Allen. What a bonus, what a boost this signing could be. So a lot of potential. We'll see. There are a lot of ifs in there, but there's a lot of potential as well in this signing, and they can make it even better if they continue to upgrade the offense in the wide receiver room. Is that going to happen? Is another move coming on offense for the Patriots. We'll get to that, plus your calls. I see you guys already starting to line up. 617-779-0985 as we're off and running here on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
Stay tuned for more Sunday Kickoff on the Sports Hub.
Catch all the college hoops back.
Not sure. I'll work on that for you. Okay, but you believe that they're still shopping on the free agent market for another veteran.
Yes.
I love that. I love that for them.
Get the guys that know what they're doing, get them up and running. We're going to go with adults in the room. Yes. Yeah. We're not going to baby people. He ain't effing around.
So he mentioned Lockett. He mentioned Keenan Allen. And they were talking about free agency. I personally, again, there's no inside anything here. I just still wonder about Brandon Ayuk. And I'm not going to wonder in like 2 days because he's due a roster bonus, a very significant roster bonus on April 1st, which I think we figured out is Tuesday, right? Yep. And the rumor is that the Niners don't want to pay it. And I wonder if, the closer they get to that deadline, if the price keeps coming down, if you can flip like a 5th round pick for Brandon Ayuk or a 4th round pick, and I know that's a lot less than last year, but last year the Niners wanted to keep him, now they don't. Last year his ACL and MCL were intact, now they're not. So that's going to, Andy's a year older. That's going to drive down the price a ton. So I wonder if they want to add another wide receiver. Now, I don't know that I love 2 guys cut with rebuilt knees and building it around that. But I'll add him to that list as well. Is there anybody left out there, Cerrone, wide receiver or otherwise, that you'd like to see the Patriots still pursue in free agency?
Like Lockett over the guys that are available. I think at this point in their careers, I would take Lockett. Not saying he's been dominant. He's had some decline the last few years, but how much of that is did he lose his ability? Or was it Metcalf getting more targets, or I can't think of the kid's name, the rookie that they got?
Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yes, thank you. How much of it is him getting more targets? All those things played into it. But I think Tyler Lockett would be one another guy I'd bring in there because I think his style will kind of fit. I think it'd be, again, another veteran in the room, another guy for these guys to learn from, and another reliable guy that you can have on third down, move the chains. Might still have a little bit of big playability left in your play action game, things like that. So just having another guy like that. But I think at this point, I'd take him over the Keenan Allens and the Amari Coopers. I think Lockett would be my guy. Brandon Ayuk, if you can get him, we just talked about his injury. I think with him, you'd be waiting a lot longer for him to come back.
Yeah.
But I think with his youth, speed, things like that, it make him intriguing down the line. And I think if he put it like this, if Brandon Ayuk was the only guy you got and you didn't get Stefon Diggs, it'd be wild. But I think if you do end up with somebody like that, you say you do get him for a 5th round pick or something like that, I don't think anybody would be mad. But I think you really have to be more patient with him than you would with anybody else. But right now with me, I think it'd be Tyler Lockett would be the guy I'd go after.
I'll give you one more, Tyron Smith. And I don't know that he's going to want to come here. He's 34 years old. He might be chasing a ring. And there's teams, obviously, that need left tackles. Mm-hmm. But if you at least have a bridge there, and we'll get to the left tackles in the draft a little bit later in the show, if you just have a bridge there, now you're really freed up to do whatever you want to do in the draft. And they can still do that anyway. They still do best player available, but now you're really risking it at left tackle. That's the one position that they needed to address that they haven't addressed, at least to some extent. You could argue maybe some other positions they haven't addressed enough, but they have addressed.
Yeah.
That's the one position they really haven't. So if they could add Tyron Smith, he's a bridge, like Diggs. We're still doing, like, we could still very well end up doing tackle and receiver again next year in the draft, Groundhog Day. But at least you know that Drake May's blind side is protected this year. Well, he's not the player he once was, but he was solid last year. He was fine. And I would take fine at left tackle at this point.
Yeah, and one thing, the difference I think you'd have, say you do get Tyron Smith.
Yeah.
And you put a bunch of veterans around Drake May with the other guys you've added on your offensive line, defense, things like that. You've increased the age of your team. You're not a veteran team, but you have more veterans. You're a better team. Favorable schedule, new coaching situation. You got Drake May playing the full season. You could be going into wide receiver tackle again next season, but the difference would be you could potentially be a decent team,
right?
Attractive team. And I think next year, come free agency, you'll have more guys picking up the phone than you would have this offseason, where it's kind of, I'm not sure. I don't know what kind of team they are, what they're going to look like. We're going to have a better idea on Drake May, a better idea on Mike Vrabel. the moves they made this season, how good this team is. I think you see a lot of people say, man, we got to get the Patriots back, got to be back to being the Patriots. I think that doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a Super Bowl team. I think you just got to be back to being a relevant team, a team that's in the mix to make a playoff spot. And I think if you are that team, you're going into tackle wide receiver next offseason, but with a chance there, I think, to hit more home runs besides the draft, because I think your situation is going to be far more attractive next offseason than it was this year.
And you're going to have, not that I question Drake May's leadership ability. I think guys totally rallied around him last year, but he's a young guy. Like, he can always learn, and you're going to have him learning from Stefon Diggs and Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith, and obviously, Hunter Henry still, and those kind of guys. So next year, in a year or two, and he's a third-year, fourth-year player, and you have young players at both tackles. Maybe Diggs is done at this point. Young receivers, guys that you draft in 2026, things like that. When you have all these young players, now he's going to be kind of one of the older, more experienced players.
Yeah. And
you're going to have people looking at him, and he's now played with these great veterans, especially guys like Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith. Just, a lot of esteem in this league for their, not just their play on the field, but their leadership ability. Having Drake May learn from those guys, there's certainly value in that as well. So I've come around. I was kind of out on Tyron Smith at the beginning of the offseason just because he was older. I wanted them to get a more long-term answer, somebody with a little bit of a higher ceiling. Obviously, that guy is not out there at this point. There really wasn't anybody fully fitting that description that hit the market. Ronnie Stanley was a pipe dream. But yeah, if you just get somebody in that role, you don't have to worry about Drake May's blindside this year. You still probably have to fill left guard, but if left guard is your weak spot, what they have set up, it's not the weakest weak spot ever. And generally, like, offensive line coaches will tell you this. If you have one weak spot on your offensive line and the other four spots are solid, you can get by with that, especially if it's a guard position. So for where they are, would they have the best offensive line of all time? No. Would they be, assuming everybody stays healthy, leaps and bounds ahead of where they were last year? Yes. And I'll take competent at this point up front. I'll take middle of the pack. I'll take average. You want them to have a great offensive line eventually, but you also want them to have great receivers. You want them to have a great pass rush. You want to have them to have great corners, right? You weren't going to be able to put it all together at once. It's got to come in stages, and you'd like offensive line to be towards the top of that list, but if they can just get it to salvageable this year, if they can just get it to average this year, I think that would be an accomplishment.
And I think one thing that will happen, kind of happens on every team. There's going to be somebody we didn't see coming on this team, somebody who worked their way up in camp. I'm not saying just offensive line. I mean the whole roster, offensive side. There's going to be somebody who works their way up in camp. I think there's going to be somebody who comes in this offseason for all the workouts, training camp, everything better than last season. There's going to be somebody filling a role on this offense that we kind of didn't see coming. I don't know, Jawan Bentley. Somebody's going to do something that's going to fill in one of these holes because they're gonna get the benefit of adding. Stefon Diggs is going to make somebody better. I think the additions you made on the offensive line, somebody's going to make somebody else better. Could have been one of the rookies from last year you had on the line. One of those, somebody's going to come in this offseason better than they were last year. It's going to fill a hole, fill a need. I think it's going to happen tremendously on the defensive side. I think the additions they made over there are going to open up a lot of guys to have much better seasons or boost their career than we've seen in the past. But I do think somebody's going to step up on this offense that we didn't see coming and absolutely fill a need. It could be a running back who all of a sudden now has more passing lanes. More running lanes because of the additions on the offensive line, the additions on receiver. Now it spaces the offense out. Somebody's going to explode on this team. I'm not sure who it is, but I think you're going to see guys who are on this team already. Somebody's going to step up and fill one of those gaps.
We'll get right to your calls next. You want to join us, talk Patriots, the Stefon Diggs signing. We can start getting into the draft, too. 617-779-0985. Right to your calls next on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
More Sunday Kickoff is on the way on the Sports Hub.
It's time for some flag football with New England Flag Football.
1,000 yards last year. He can still get off press. He's a great guy in quick game out in the perimeter. Like, he can run with the ball. I think the thing that stood out to me in making that move is a real vote of confidence for Drake.
Yeah, it's just trying to make sure that we're supporting Drake and supporting the football team. And again, this is a highly competitive, confident receiver that's produced throughout his career and multiple ways. Play style, right? He's got a play strength to him, right? That you see that he can play physical, route craft, good at the catch point. He's been good in the red zone, right? That there's a play style to him that I've always appreciated and that we want to, continue to enhance and make sure that, he's doing things to help us. But it's just his conversation, his demeanor, his attitude, and his presence have been, great through our conversations. And, hopefully we can continue to add good players.
That was Mike Vrabel this week with Chris Long talking about the Stefon Diggs signing. And to me, the key part in there, supporting Drake May. And there's been a lot of talk that the Patriots only focused on defense. They didn't help May out. Look, they still have the draft. The Diggs signing, though, definitely in support of Drake May. By the way, that thing on Stefon Diggs' leadership up now, 98.5thesportshub.com. We also have some more stuff from myself and Matt Dolph on what Diggs had to say on Friday about his injury and his relationship with Vrabel and things like that. But let's go to the phones and hear what you guys have to think about Stefon Diggs. Matt in Rhode Island starts us off this morning. Good morning, Matt.
Hey, what's up, guys? Yeah, I'll have to check out that article in a little bit. But, Cerrone, you were just saying exactly what I was thinking. Dude, honestly, I'm hoping that guy is Jawan Baker. Both fourth and fifth round draft picks. I think Diggs gets to Baker and brings out hopefully the best in him. A lot of people made a lot about Diggs' bad attitude, but this can be a good thing too because he's going to first teach them how to be professionals and he has a compete level that's super high, which is what we need. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for the call, Matt. Yeah, if he can be an influence on Baker, on Polk, on Kayshon Boutte, even Pop Douglas. He's real. So, of the receivers on the team right now, Diggs has played over 140 NFL games. He's been in the league since 2015. He's experienced. Mac Hollins is the next most experienced receiver. He's played 112 games. Kendrick Bourne's right behind him at 111. We don't know whether or not Kendrick Bourne's going to make the roster. You figure Mac Hollins will because of his because he just signed in free agency, right? After that, nobody's played more than 2 years. Pop and Kayshon Boutte are entering year 3. Obviously, you had a bunch of guys you drafted last year and then some practice squad guys that round out the roster who haven't really appeared in any NFL games. So Diggs is kind of the guy in terms of player you're looking up to. Like it's very clearly him, and we'll see what kind of influence he has on these young receivers.
Yeah, I mean, I think he will. I think you'll have an immediate impact on these guys. I think how they work. I mean, if we've all seen the clips of him getting rehabbing, getting back in shape, and some of the stuff he's doing already. I think that's going to put pressure on. It's like, okay, if this dude's doing this rehabbing from a knee injury, I better get busy rehabbing, being just as aggressive this offseason. If I'm not dealing with injury, we just saw this information about Polk and his shoulder, but I think some of the other guys should be in the lab or should have been in the lab already getting ready for this season because it's going to push them and probably going to call them out for not being ready, not being in shape and not being prepared. And I think they didn't really have a guy who was going to do that for them last year. You mentioned Kendrick Bourne. He was coming back off an injury, so he wasn't – I don't know how much he was around the younger guys during training camp and all this stuff before training camp, whereas he couldn't be the veteran guy in their ear the whole time. Stefon Diggs, I don't know how much he's going to be there as well, but I think having somebody who's going to push them, who's going to correct them in training camp and during certain situations where we saw times you were down there every day, man. You saw all the highlight reel catches from Polk and Baker, and then the next day they'd be down, drop passes, miscommunication, and I think having a veteran out there to say, no, do this, do that, prepare this way, be ready for that. And that way they don't go into the season not second-guessing themselves, but I felt like Polk in general, he seemed unsure of himself pretty early, like his confidence was down once the season started. And I think having somebody that can steady him through the whole camp, throughout all of summer, will have him ready to go by week 1. It won't have these young guys out there feeling like there's too much on their shoulders, feeling pressured or whatever. And they can just play ball and react instead of out there trying to guess and think of what's going on.
Let's go to Randy in Providence on Stefon Diggs. Good morning, Randy.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Hey.
I wanted to say on Diggs, first off, let me throw 2 names out there. Number one, I really like Keenan Allen. He's always been a great route runner in the system. And even if he's not, wildly productive, if he could come in for the first month and let Diggs sit out, that'd be awesome. And then go give Zach Martin maybe 10 million reasons to unretire at the left guard spot. But on Diggs, I was out initially. After the signing, the contract, they can get out after a year pretty easily. And then his press conference, one of the things he talked about was Vrabel being an ex-player and how that was different. And I went back and I was thinking, like, Minnesota, he kind of had locker room issues. Well, that coach wasn't an ex-player, right? Buffalo, same thing, not an ex-player. But Houston, they talked glowingly about him, right? D'Amico Ryans is an ex-player. And I wonder if that dynamic of the relationship changes kind of if his locker room issues are about like fiery competitiveness. Well, who's going to understand that better than Vrabel?
Yeah, good call. Good point. Thanks for the call.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was interesting in his answer. He said that, I'm trying to find the exact quote here. He said, somebody asked him, like, is Mike Vrabel being a former player a draw for you? And he said, I don't have the exact quote. I'm trying to find it, but something along the lines of the fact that he's a former player and the kind of player he was, and the fact that he played with the standard, he played with an edge, all of that. I think it did come across like Stefon Diggs has. We have the cut here. Let's hear the cut, and then we can react to it.
Hey, Steph.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, thanks. You said you had some kind of prior relationship with Coach Vrabel. Probably not a huge relationship, but what is it about him that you like or appreciate, and was he part of the draw for you to come here?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I also kind of factor in that he was a former player, and player-to-coach relationship, it kind of meshes really well with coaches that played at one time. They know what it takes to put the time in, being out there. They, I guess they wouldn't say it's like too much like a robot. Like sometimes they get caught up in being like in the numbers and the X's and O's. And player coaches know that you out there, you can make plays. Things come up differently. You know what I'm saying? How you see things can be differently when you once were a player. So he was a big draw for me. Seeing that he played the game of football and how well he played the game of football. That means he played with a standard. He played with some moxie. He had that energy. He played with a team or like individuals that were, great at what they do. Being around greatness and breeding greatness is like it's rubbing shoulders with it. I feel like it's a good relationship to have, especially when you're out there. So trying to follow suit in a way.
Yeah, so there it was. It's in the middle there. He was a big draw for me, seeing he played the game of football and how well he played the game of football. I don't think and D'Amico Ryan's a hell of a player too. So
yes, he was.
I don't think it's just that, hey, Vrabel played in the league. I think Diggs at this point in his career kind of sounds like wants to be, and obviously he's a very different position, but kind of wants to be the kind of player that Mike Vrabel was when he was here. We all know how impactful Vrabel was as a player here.
Yeah, and something else he said in there, I think something along the lines of some coaches get too caught up in the numbers or something like that. And it's like, is he taking a shot at like the coaches who are all, not the analytics guys or whatever, but the ex-players, I think, is more, they see the game different. They see it in different ways. They have more, it's more about feel and vibe and tendencies and stuff like that, as opposed to the numbers and the data or whatever, which you see a lot of coaches adopting in across all sports. And I think he kind of feels that the ex-player is more on the field. They can see things the same way you see it. They understand what's going to happen, what could happen, and they run their offense or call their plays based off of more of a tendency and feel, as opposed to what the numbers say we should do in this situation. And I think some players are attracted to that. And I can definitely see a guy like Stefon Diggs there. But that's a great point by the caller to mention that, and an ex-player will understand his fieriness on the sidelines. Like, oh no, you know what? He's not being mean to everybody over there. He's not being a jerk on the sidelines. I understand where he's coming from. Yes, that guy should have caught that pass, and we should be up right now. So I think an next player will see that better. But that's good on the caller and good on Diggs for recognizing that.
617-779-0985. You want to weigh in on the Patriots offseason. They add some experience and leadership with Stefon Diggs, but a very experienced Patriot leaving the team this week as well. We'll get to that next. Long commercial-free segment coming up on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
More Sunday Kickoff coming up on the Sports Hub.
picks it off and runs it to the 40 of New York.
Oh, my God.
A critical error by Zach Wilson.
It's the worst throw I've seen all year.
Oh, I forgot about that throw. That was a bad throw. So it's not wrong there. That was obviously playing that. Jawan Bentley released by the Patriots this week. He is the latest former captain, leader of this team to leave. Played 83 games in New England with 68 starts, over 500 tackles, 10 sacks, couple of interceptions, including that one you heard just there. Tough to see him go. Great player, great Patriot. Was one of the last guys here who won a Super Bowl here. There's only one left, and it's Joe Cardona. That's it. That's the last tie to the Super Bowl. Now they're Carlton Davis, Milton Williams have won elsewhere. I don't know the last time the Patriots had more players that won Super Bowls on other teams that won Super Bowls here. It's certainly been a while.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And it's going to be, once Cardona leaves, it's been, if you, in one sense, it's been more than 25 years since the Patriots had a player who didn't win a Super Bowl with the team on the roster. If you then backtrack it, right, to guys who would go on to win the team, who were on that 2021 team when they got here, you got to go back to the 90s. So some historic context there. I get why Bentley was released. They're going to play a different system defensively. He's more of a downhill, traditional run-stopping linebacker. They want guys that can go east to west. They want guys that can cover smaller, more athletic linebackers. It did sound like Bentley had been dropping some weight and trying to get ready to play this role as he was coming back from that injury. But I don't know, maybe the coaches didn't see him being a fit. They've obviously added significantly at the position. They're remaking the room. Mm-hmm. They're remaking the room. They brought in Spillane. They brought in Gibbons. I would think Christian Ellis is going to continue to have a significant role. He kind of fits that mold. I'm kind of surprised Jelani Tavai is still here. I don't know how much longer he's going to be here because he's certainly, unless they're going to move him full-time to the edge, where he is better and is more of a fit, but he's not playing off the ball in this system. It's a brand new linebacker room, and I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to address it in the draft as well. But Jawan Bentley, we'll see. I think he still has something left in the tank.
Yeah.
I think he still goes and gets another job somewhere else, but when he's done with that, definitely somebody who should be back here getting a red jacket.
Yeah, and I think he finds himself in a situation where I would say a veteran team, a good team, a team that's on the brink could pick him up. I can see him going to, the Cincinnatis of the world, Cincinnati's, Baltimore.
Washington, right? They already added Wise and Jonathan Jones.
Yeah, I can see him going to one of those ready-made situations and giving them a veteran boost. And because I think guys who are former captains who have been productive, who've won in the league, have value. And I think one of these teams that are trying to get over the top will absolutely grab a guy up like that. Last time he was on the field for a full season, we had 4.5, 5 sacks. He got in the backfield a little bit. He got in the backfield a lot for a linebacker. 100+ tackles, 115 tackles, whatever it is. A guy like that, I think, will have, and he didn't have a major lower leg injury or something that'll really slow you down. I think his upper body. So I think a guy like him with the experience, the winning, the leadership qualities, he absolutely will get picked up by a veteran team. I think it's probably up to him where he wants to go at this point. But good for him. He's earned that. And I would love to see him come back and get his recognition for what he's done with this team, what he's done with this franchise. And I was sad to see him go, but I understand that, look, this team is being made over in Vrabel's image. This is what he wants. And you mentioned the east or west linebackers, probably more quickness out there. And I was going to ask you, do you see them really, really addressing that in the draft or later in the draft or earlier? Are they going to go for an impact type player at linebacker or somebody a little later in the draft to more so fill a need as opposed to an impact?
They've been preaching best player available. So if they move down, I don't think at 4, but if they move down 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there, Jalen Walker, Jahad Campbell, are guys that could be the best player available. If not, I think later on, just because they've brought in so many veterans. And Spillane's going to play, right? They gave Christian Ellis a decent chunk of change. He's going to play. So I think that's more of a depth move. Max in the truck wants to talk about Jawan Bentley's release. Good morning.
Good morning, Alex and Cerrone. How's it going?
Morning.
Good.
So I like the Stefon Diggs signing. I think if he's healthy, he can stretch the field. He can help Drake May out. I think it's a great signing. They needed to sign somebody like him for this offense. And also, I'm going to miss Jawan Bentley. I think he was a great linebacker, but like you guys said, they're moving in a different direction and want to get faster at linebacker. Barth, a question for you. At 4, if Travis Hunter is not there or Abdul Carter, do they trade out or what do they do with the number 4 pick? Thanks for taking my call, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks for the call, Max. I think they'd love to trade out. The trade has to be there. As for what they do, that's how I wanted to spend the entire second half of this show. So hold on tight, Max. We're going to get a check of the headlines here in 90 seconds. No commercials. Draft talk coming back. If you want to talk draft, the real nerd stuff, the real dork stuff, 617-779-0985. That's what we're doing for the next hour here on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
From the Town Fair Tiger Studios, this is Boston's home for sports.
He scores! What a blast by Boston! Waiting, Holiday, 3, good night!
WBCFM at HD Boston 95, the Sports Hub, Beasley Media Group station. Sports Hub headlines, presented by Celsius Energy Drinks.
The Celtics picked up a win last night down in San Antonio, beating the Spurs 121-111. Jason Tatum led the way with 29 points. Drew Holiday added 21. The Celtics wrap up their Western Conference road trip tomorrow against the Grizzlies. The Bruins were in action yesterday as well. They lost 2-1 to the Detroit Red Wings. Morgan Geekie scored the lone goal for the Bees. The Red Sox lost 4-3 to the Texas Rangers last night. Although bright spot in that game, Christian Campbell hit his first major league home run. The Red Sox and Rangers wrap up that series this afternoon. Richard Fitz gets the start for the Sox against Jacob deGrom. Elsewhere in Major League Baseball yesterday, the Yankees hit 9 home runs in a 20-9 win over the Brewers, including 3 home runs on the first 3 pitches of the game. The 9 home runs are tied for the second most by a team in a game in MLB history. The New England Revolution took down the New York Red Bulls yesterday 2-1. Charles Gill scored both goals for the Revs in that one. And March Madness continues today. The Elite Eight, a couple games last night, 2-1 seeds in Florida and Duke punching their tickets to the Final Four. The last 2 teams will be decided today. It's both 1 versus 2 matchups as Houston takes on Tennessee and Auburn takes on Michigan State. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Valvoline Instant Oil Change. Enjoy quick and convenient vehicle maintenance this month. Visit NewEnglandOilChange.com for 15% off your drive-through oil change at Valvoline Instant Oil Change, the official oil change of busy people. I'm Alex Barth on Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub. Your next update at 10 o'clock.
Here we go. Boom. I win. Kaboom. Yeah.
It's a buddy. We've got a passion for Boston sports.
Get angry.
98.5 The Sports Hub.
He begins the approach with a run-up and a swing right leg.
Every football game starts with a kickoff. This is Sunday Kickoff with Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle on your home for Patriots football. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
For 2 years, nobody had any measurements on me, and nobody said anything about my play. So now all of a sudden, an arm length decides if I'm a good player or not. I think it's BS. But, any decision makers in the NFL, they don't really care. It's all, people who don't coach, and they don't coach for a reason.
Oh, he's not happy. He's not happy. That was Will Campbell this week at his pro day when asked about his arm length. I don't blame him. I like that. A little bit of fire. So this is where we're going to start the draft talk. Because the always sunny Pepe Sylvia meme. So yeah. I kind of did a little bit of that this week. Will Campbell measured in at his pro day, at the LSU pro day. His wingspan was about the same. His arm length grew. And it grew, I should say in air quotes, significantly. He got 3/8 of an inch, and he is now at that 33-inch mark. As Mike Reese pointed out in his Sunday notes this morning, had that been the case at the Combine, we probably wouldn't be having all this debate about Will Campbell. He's a tackle. Now, some people might hear that and say, well, LSU's just trying to pump him up and blah, blah, blah. Well, first off, according to Field Yates, it's an NFL representative doing the measurement. Mm-hmm. Also, he's not the only player that has an arm length discrepancy.
Yeah.
And so let me be very clear about this. What I'm about to say. This is not necessarily, it's partially. This is not a Will Campbell take. This is an overall draft take. Because I went back, all right, we'd heard the numbers are off, and we talked a little bit about this since the Combine, that some people were pointing out that the numbers were a little off from some of the showcases. But the Will Campbell measurement's different. All right, in scale, how different is this than everybody else? So I looked at the top players from the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl on the offensive line. I included guards and centers as well as tackles, so we had a little bit larger of a data set called. Mm-hmm. Will Campbell, the difference, getting to 33 inches is obviously big for him. But the 3/8 of a difference, there were guys that got hosed a lot more than he did. Marcus Mabeau from Purdue lost a whole inch.
Jesus.
Between the Senior Bowl and the Combine, and he measured in at the Senior Bowl at 33 inches. So you're talking about him being scouted as a potentially different player. Ariante Ursery, Minnesota. John Williams, Cincinnati, 7/8 of an inch. Anthony Belton, 3/4. And I have all these numbers up on my Twitter, and I wrote about it on 98.5. Clay Webb, Holland Pierce, Drew Kendall, Joshua Gray, Josh Connolly, Wyatt Milam, Ozzie Trapillo, Armand Membu, Brandon Crenshaw Dixon, all lost half an inch or more. And these are at different events. And then more numbers have come out since, and it's not just the linemen. Chris Paul, linebacker from Ole Miss. His number was more in line with the Shrine Bowl than it was with the Combine, and he was well under at the Combine. JT, I'm still working on pronouncing his last name, from Ohio State, the edge guy, lost more than an inch between the Combine and his pro day. More than an inch.
So the Combine, he measured in the shoulder.
More than an inch shorter, yep. Now, look, the numbers aren't always exactly the same every year. But I went back and looked last year. They're missing by 1/8 of an inch, maybe 2, and it's in both directions. This is some guys up to an inch, and it's all shorter.
This is some guy out there with a tape measure. It's going like
I think the Combine got it wrong. And so, again, to bring it back, it's a Will Campbell take, but it's not, because Will Campbell is actually probably affected by this a lot less than some other guys. It kills him in the court of public perception, which is what Mike Reese talked to Field Yates about in his piece this morning. Because publicly, there's fans now that are terrified of the idea of taking him because of his short arms and the draft party, whatever it is. Like, if they take Campbell, it's going to be like Jaylen Brown on draft night. We all remember how that turned out.
Yeah, they booed him.
So, for my purposes for the draft moving forward, I'm using the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl measurements. I'm not using the Combine. But for Campbell, he's a high draft pick. There's only a handful of teams that can take him. Teams will have him in. They'll have him for a top 30. They'll do their own measurement. They'll get the accurate information. A player like Marcus Mabeau, who's a fringe top 100 pick as a tackle.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now he might be a guard. Is a team going to burn a top 30 visit just to get his measurement, or are they going to move on to somebody else? And, how many guys are going to lose draft stock because of this beyond the court of public opinion? Yep. So I just wanted to start there. The whole 32 and 5, and to bring it back to Campbell, I'm not going to talk about Campbell at 32 and 5/8. Now, his wingspan is still historically short, and that is a factor, obviously. But he's 33-inch arms in my case, and I think for any of these guys, you look at it, and this is something, as we've gotten bogged down in the arm length conversation, and we have gotten bogged down at sometimes, and I've been guilty of losing track of this, and I don't want us to lose track of this. Can the guy play or not? When you put on the tape, can the guy play or not? Will Campbell can play. Ariante Ursery can play. Armand Membu can play. even if the NFL says their arms are a little shorter than they maybe actually are. I think this year, more than anything else, and this compounds with it being a weaker draft, you got to throw out, and for Membu too, I'll throw this out with Membu, the whole thing about him moving from right to left, that makes me nervous. Campbell's wingspan makes me nervous. But I think you kind of got to put that stuff aside and just look at it and say, can he play, yes or no? I think that's important this year. So to the caller's last question before the break, to bring it all the way back, what do you do if Hunter's off the board and Campbell's off the board? A trade down would be great. I don't know if it's going to be there. Mm-hmm. A trade down would be great if you can get it. If not, I'm comfortable taking Will Campbell there because he can play. At the end of the day, he held his own in the SEC. He can play. He's going to have to compensate for the shorter wingspan, but it's no different than Armand Membu is going to have to compensate changing positions, or Ashton Jeanty can't really compensate, I guess, for the number of carries he has, or Tyler Warren, his age, right? It's no different. I think he'll figure it out. So that's my answer to that question, and that's my rant on the NFL getting the arm length wrong. And I appreciate everybody who's been tagging me. I feel like every day there's a pro day now. People are tagging me because there's another measurement that changed from the combine.
Yeah, I mean, I was out a couple days ago, and I'm just sitting there. I seen the tape measure at the corner of my eyes. Grabbed this thing, and that's why I put on Twitter the actual what 3/8 inch looks like.
Oh, I saw that. That was a good.
Yo, it's so minor. And I'm like, I agree with what you're saying. Some of these guys are going to miss out on a lot of money because the guards don't get paid like tackles.
Yeah, it's more about like the league may have cost the players here. That's more my take than Will Campbell's arms aren't as much of a concern. The big take is the league screwed up the combine.
Yeah, they did. And they messed some guys up. Even if Will Campbell slides, he's going to miss every pick. He's going to miss a couple dollars. And it goes back to what you're saying. But can these guys play? And I've seen a lot of people debating, well, once his arm length thing came out at his pro day, yeah, but he struggled against this. Yeah, he's not good at that. He's not. Now the nitpicking starts. And look, these guys are college players. You are going to find a game, a snap, a moment, a quarter, whatever, where every single guy in this draft looks bad. Drake May, everyone knows how I felt about Drake May before I saw him at his pro day. And I watch the kid play every week, and it was like, okay, once I seen that up close, I said, oh, I see it. Every one of these guys are going to have issues. They're going to have some flaws. The guys at the top, the reason they're top 10 picks is because they have less of them. They're going to have flaws, but Cam Ward, Shant Sanders, they're going to have flaws. Travis Hunter, we don't know what he looks like playing one way 100% of the time.
Let's not talk about the flaws of the quarterbacks in case any of those top 3 teams are listening. They're perfect.
Yes.
Or anybody who wants to trade up, come up to 4. The quarterbacks are perfect.
Yeah, they're mine. Jackson Dart, can't miss.
Come up, you get Jackson Dart at 4, please.
Can't miss. But when it comes to Will Campbell, I look at a guy that played at LSU. He played in the SEC, which I consider the NFL's, 9th division.
Yeah.
The dude gave up 2 sacks in his college career?
2 sacks last year. I think it's
last year.
5 or 6 total. Single
Something
digits.
Like
yeah.
It's like that's a conference where every week he's being the guy across from him is NFL worthy. The dude is a dominant tackle. And I think that's what you want when you look at Drake May. I'm looking at Drake May. I want this kid to be my quarterback in the future. I want him to stay healthy. It's like, okay, there's a kid standing there to his left that is 6'6", 325 pounds, whatever he is. And he's got a little attitude with him, which I think Mike Vrabel would love.
Oh, my God. That press conference or whatever that answer was, you think Vrabel's drooling looking at that. And I mean that in the most complimentary way possible. Seriously, like that is the culture that they want to instill.
Exactly. That's the key right there. Culture. Can he play? Yes. Did he play against elite competition? The top of the top. Was he dominant at that? Yes, he was. He was even dominant when the rest of LSU wasn't that good last year. He still stood out. He's got the attitude, and I think he'll have Drake May's back from the day he's drafted. And I think this team needs a little nastiness. They need somebody who can, at the press conference, just come out and just be raw. I think they need an attitude adjustment, and I think a kid like him, if he's there and that's one of your biggest needs on this whole team, I think it'd be hard to pass up on Will Campbell. And I didn't think that little bit on the tape measure made that much difference in the first place. But now that he measures out, I think if he's there because of his position of need, because you signed Stefon Diggs, and now we're not looking at McMillan or Hunter the same way, and when it comes to need, I think you have to look at Will Campbell and take a serious run at adding him to this roster.
Look, it is a game of inches. I don't push back on that. But if he's at 33, and again, like, you either have to believe that the combine screwed up, or all of these other individual entities screwed up the equal amount, which is either a massive coincidence or you believe they colluded. And real draft nerd stuff here, the Senior Bowl and Shrine Bowl guys don't exactly like each other. So they don't exactly have a working relationship. So I don't know that they would have agreed to collude, only to obviously be undone at the combine, right? So at 33 inches, Rashawn Slater, 33 inches, that's the comp. And again, the attitude, can we hear that again, Kyle? Just listen to the disgust in his voice here.
For 2 years, nobody had any measurements on me, and nobody said anything about my play. So now all of a sudden, an arm length decides if I'm a good player or not.
Oh, he's so pissed.
It's BS. But, any decision makers in the NFL, they don't really care. It's all, people who don't coach, and they don't coach for a reason.
Oh, he's going to come in and be angry.
It sounds like a villain origin story. Just listen to him talk. Like you just hear something being born out of that. But his game matched that intensity we just heard.
Oh yeah.
And I think people have finally got a chance to hear him speak like that. But I think, put it like this, I'd rather him defending your left tackle as opposed to playing for the Jets and you can't get by him and you can't beat them because this guy's got a wall up on the left side. I want that dude in my locker room. I think this team needs that. I think he's going to be a fiery person. You get a huddle with him and Stefon Diggs standing in there, and you're going to get a totally different huddle than anything you had the last few years. And coming out of the Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi era, what we went through last season, coming into this season with a new head coach, a new situation, I think you need somebody out there with a little edge to him, a little nastiness, but like you said, the best, a guy that we know can play the position. I'm not taking a guy with lesser talent because he's got longer arms in the third round. Give me the guy with the talent. And one thing I'll add real quick too.
Yeah.
You see this in the NBA, you see it in the NFL, you see it across all sports. Most of these guys who grow to these freakish sizes, they don't stop growing at 20, 21 years old. And if he's got 33 inches now, who's to say his arms won't be a half inch longer by the time he's 24 years old? Jason Tatum now is not the same size he was at draft night when he was picked by the Celtics. These guys get bigger over time. He's going to get better over time. And I'd rather him being Drake May's blindside protector for the next decade as he grows into that role of a superstar left tackle.
Yeah, it's a good point. That's why I think like Greg Bedard had the report before the combine that he'd measured in Campbell and measured in last spring at 32 and 7/8. So he comes in at 33. 21-year-old grew a little bit. Yeah, that makes possible. A lot of sense. Like I think that report from Greg and other people had that too. I consider the 32 and 7/8 and 33-1 measurement. They're just a year apart. And again, it comes like for all these guys. Can he play? This is my big take.
Yeah, he can play.
This is my big take for any of these guys. Don't go by the combine measurements at any position. Because what are they, Will? What were the combine measurements?
I think it's BS.
That's right. Thank you. We'll be back with your calls on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
I think it's BS.
Stay tuned for more Sunday Kickoff on the Sports Hub.
Catch all the college hoops madness at Hooters with beer and shot specials, a special limited time offer Guinness menu, and over 30 TVs with all the games. Hooters is the best place to catch all the action. Saugus, Dedham, Shrewsbury, and West Springfield. Hooters makes you happy.
Get on up and get on down to Hooters.
As our New England football team restores their roster after a disaster season, Blue Sky Restoration Contractors is always your first call to restore your home or business after a disaster. When your property is damaged by water, fire, mold, or storms, call Blue Sky before you call anyone else. They'll take care of everything from beginning to end. With locations across New England, Blue Sky will be there in no time to get you back on your feet. Visit GoBlue.
previously on him. To me, that shouldn't impact your decision one way or another because we're talking about this much in terms of space, in terms of length. You're talking about, less than a fingernail. If you don't think the guy's a good player, you don't think he's a good player. Don't blame it on the arm length. Watch him play and go off of that. I understand having thresholds and why all that stuff is important and why teams do it. I do. I get it. But let's root ourselves in reality and try to understand what we're thinking about, as opposed to just seeing a number on a screen or on a piece of paper and saying either yes or no. The Patriots, by the way, according to our buddy, friend of the podcast, ESPN's Jordan Reed, Will Campbell already had his 30 visit with the Patriots. And I could tell you he has fans in the building. The demeanor, the character, the interview process, he has really knocked it out of the park when it comes to making an impression on folks prior to the draft.
That was Phil Perry this week. Will Campbell has friends in the building in New England. Fans in the building in New England. It's Alex Barth, Cerrone Battle and Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff. Kyle Fabrizio behind the glass. So we just kind of broke down the whole arm length thing, but Campbell himself, Cerrone, where are you at with him, Carter, Hunter? Are you taking him over either of those two? In the scenario where they're both gone, is he the clear pick? Where are you at with him relative to those other two guys?
We've had this conversation back and forth many times, and the fan in me wants Travis Hunter. I think if I'm somebody in charge of marketing, promotions, or anything with the Patriots, I'd want Travis Hunter because I think he's going to be a superstar. He's going to sell merchandise. He's going to do all the things. And I think Abdul Carter is an impact player, when it comes to getting the quarterback, being a disruptor, something this team needs as well.
I think it's BS.
Exactly. I think that the level-headed decision here, which was the decision we all were in agreement with back in January, you got to get a left tackle. And I think the arm length thing kind of threw everybody off of that, threw everybody off that focus. I think when you look at the quarterback situation, you look at the biggest problem with this team in the last few years, that offensive line, I'm protecting my quarterback. I want all the toys. I want all the bells and whistles. I think I have to go with Will Campbell here in this situation. And I got to get my wide receiver later. I got to get my disruptor later because there's more than one disruptor in this draft. And there's more than one good wide receiver. There's only a couple All-American left tackles in Will Campbell's one of them. Will Campbell, I think Calvin Banks was the other one or whatever, but he has his flaws as well. They all have their own individual flaws, like we just mentioned. But I think the smart decision here, it's not the sexy one, but the smart decision is to take the left tackle, protect your quarterback, increase your ground game. It allows you to open up your passing attack, and it's something you don't have to worry about for years. We just talked about if you got Tyron Smith and brought some of these other guys in, these are all bridge pieces on your offensive line. You don't want to see Tyron Smith coming here at 34 years old. All of a sudden, he twists his ankle. He's out a month. Drake May's getting blown up for weeks, and you're back to the situation all over again like last year. You can throw this whole team right off the rails by having a bad offensive line. So I think the level-headed, smart decision here is to go ahead, get the All-American left tackle, dominant SEC left tackle, who cares about his arms or whatever it may be, and protect this quarterback's blind side and just forget about that whole position for years to come and build in other places.
I'm still taking Carter and Hunter if they're on the board, just because I think that the floor's much higher and the ceiling's up there as well. I do think I'm back to if those two are gone, it's Campbell. And if you can get a trade down, great, but I don't think that's a guarantee. All right, let's go to the phones. Let's go to Walter in Boston on Will Campbell. Walter, good morning.
Hey, the more I think about it, right, it's like I think Carter and Hunter are going to be gone. But if it's Carter's gone and Hunter's still there, I might go Campbell because for this reason, De'Aaron Lowe is a USFL player. You can't have him out there to start the year. It's like you can get Noel. Like they just met with him in the second round for a guy who can get down the field, and he's faster than Travis Hunter. I'm not saying he's a better player.
Yeah.
But if Drake May doesn't have time to get it to these guys, man, it's just a wash. Man. So to me, I'd rather have him than De'Aaron Lowe because that was tragic. Man.
Thanks for the call, Walter. So something that people got to keep in mind, all of my full offensive line preview for the draft up on Tuesday, and I've started writing it, and something I pointed out as I'm going. So some of these positions, like center, we think Garrett Bradbury is going to be the starter, but there's Jake Andrews, Ben Brown, Cole Strange. There's options, right? There's depth, and even if when Bradbury emerges as the starter, you have a backup. Like they should. I wouldn't hate them adding a center in the draft as more of a long-term option. I don't think any of those guys are slam dunk long-term options, but like they have the bodies there to play, right? At left guard for Darian Lowe, Cole Strange again, City So. Again, I wouldn't hate them adding somebody to bring the ceiling in that room up, but especially if you get a left tackle, you can get by starter, backup, depth with that group. At left tackle, here are the left tackles the Patriots currently have on their roster. Vidarian Lowe. That's it. That's it. There's not even like competition at this point unless they're going to try to move Caden Wallace over again, which we saw last year didn't work. And I want them to develop Caden Wallace behind Morgan Moses to take over for him when Morgan Moses moves on. If they don't take Campbell at the top, and there are arguments for them not to do that.
Yeah.
Carter and Hunter, right? You got to move back up or hope at 38, but it's really move back up that you can get one of the next tier of tackles, which is Josh Connerly or Ariante Ursary. I think Kelvin Banks is a good player, is probably going to go above where they could trade up. Yeah. He's more of a trade down from 4 candidate. Josh Simmons, really good player. The injury scares me. If he checks their medicals, put him in the box there with Ursary and Connerly. Like, put him in that group of guys you're moving up from 38 to get. But they need that guy, whoever they pick there, to play this year. Mm-hmm. If Simmons can't play this year, that doesn't really help. At that point, draft somebody else who will make an impact elsewhere and draft your tackle next year. But they need, if they don't go tackle at the top, to move up and get a tackle, because they don't even have anybody for Vidarian Lowe to compete with right now.
Yeah.
Like, he's the starter and the backup. And they don't have to play a game today. They don't have to play a game for a few months. So they have time to change that. But they do have to change that, right? If they sign Tyron Smith, it changes the math on it a little bit, obviously.
Yeah.
But short of that, they don't even have a backup right now. So they got to address that position with guys who can legitimately play year one. You want to add a project later on, a guy like a Holland Pierce, I'm all for that too. Mm-hmm. Holland Pierce is not a guy I'm comfortable throwing out there year one, not for any significant snaps. You need somebody, Campbell, Banks, Ursary, Connerly. You need, and there's not a lot of them in this draft. There's 4, maybe 5 guys that can play left tackle year one in the NFL. Let's go to Matt in Westport on the top of the draft. Matt, good morning.
Good morning, Barty. How are you?
Hey.
My biggest thing is, when you look at what the Giants just did by getting the 2 quarterbacks, I really feel that Shador is definitely going to be gone at 2 in Cleveland. I just feel it's just written in the stars. When you look at the Vegas odds, it looks like Abdul Carter is going to fall to us at 4. And I think the Patriots can definitely pass on that, man, when you really look at it. And a second part, Barty, to this, don't let Felger and Maz laugh at you about draft stocks later on, about guys like Jaden Higgins, and they're like, oh, I don't know who this name is. And it kind of makes them look stupid, and you look like a genius, buddy, which is really right, buddy. Just so you know.
I appreciate it, Matt. Sorry to cut you off there. Thanks for the call. I mean, I'm good just being on there, honestly. So that was fun. I had people reach out to me about that segment. They enjoyed it. To the first part of his call, honestly, Carter feels, I don't think he's likely. I'm not getting my hopes up, but it feels as likely now as it has at any point that Abdul Carter will get to 4 for the reasons the caller just said.
Quarterback.
Cam Ward's going 1. That seems like it's locked in. If Shador goes 2, then for the Giants, I think we talked about this last week, right? Travis Hunter makes a lot more sense for the Giants than Abdul Carter if they're not taking a quarterback.
Yeah.
And maybe they still take quarterback. I'm not ruling anything out with the Giants. But, yeah, and if Carter's there, he's the pick. They can't pass on him. They can't pass. You better get a haul in a trade down. That's the only acceptable way to pass. And when I say a haul, I mean like you're not moving back more than a handful of spots, and you're getting multiple future picks. I would rather come out of this
Julio
draft.
Jones trade.
I don't remember. What was the Julio Jones trade?
Was it first round picks for years?
Yeah, something like that. Like, you got to come out, and I want the future picks. I want picks in a better draft. You get the first back this year, first and second next year on top of that. Like, I'm thinking about that, especially from a bad team. I'm thinking about that. But Carter's got to be the pick, and he does have to be the pick if he's there, I think. At the same time, that's all the more urgency you have to move up from 38 and make sure you get your tackle.
Yep.
And now maybe you've gained some extra assets. Now maybe you move up to a point where Kelvin Banks is in play.
Kelvin Banks is there.
Because you can give up a little more. But Ariante Arcery, Josh Connolly, maybe Josh Simmons. Again, I always hate talking about players like that because I'm not a doctor and I haven't seen the medical information. So I don't know. If he's healthy, he's a good pick. I personally would be worried about the medical stuff, but maybe teams have seen the details and there's nothing to worry about. That's just me giving you the information on the prospect. The injury is something that is there to keep in mind. But if they get Carter at the top, great. You still really have to get that tackle, and then wide receiver gets pushed further down the board. The caller actually mentioned somebody, Jalen Noel, who the Patriots met with this week. They met with Jalen Noel. They met with a couple of receivers that all sort of fit a mold.
Yep.
Is that a sign of what the Patriots' plan is in the draft for the wide receiver position? We'll do that next, plus your call, 617-779-0985, as we keep going here on Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
Sunday Kickoff is on the way on the Sports Hub.
downs on one play.
Jalen Noel was one of the receivers the Patriots met with this week. It's Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle, the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff. I really like Jalen Noel as a prospect. I really do. Slot receiver. So on the smaller side, but he's like short, but he's not small. He's built for that volume role. 5'10", 194, ran a 4.39 40. Really shifty, really good with the ball in his hands. If they're going to try to bring back that traditional Patriot slot role, so more Edelman than Myers, this is a guy that can do that with a little bit of juice. They also met with Kyle Williams from Washington State, who has been one of my favorite players throughout the draft. I was very confused early on why nobody was talking about him. He was projected as like a fringe draft pick. And then this week, I think everybody's kind of caught up. 5'11", 190, moves really well, gets open at all three levels, is good with the ball in his hands. Another guy with speed, ran a 4.4 flat. He's an older prospect. He just wrapped up his fifth year of college. I believe he's going to be a 22-year-old rookie. And he was a late breakout player, so there's some questions about his ceiling. But in terms of his floor, I think he's a guy that can come in and compete right away and be a good complementary player, which the Patriots could use. You can probably get him in the third round, right? That 69th pick I don't think is unrealistic. But kind of similar players. They get there a little differently, but they achieve the same goal. And it makes me kind of think, we did this, was it last week, 2 weeks ago with the running backs when they met with Quinn Allen. It's like, oh, hey, he'd fit the James White role. These guys kind of do it again. It's a little different than Edelman and Welker. These guys are a little more explosive. They're a little more straight line athletes, but the route running, the ability to separate, the ability after the catch, and these guys that are a little bit smaller, a little more compact, like they look like they belong in that role, or they look like they would thrive in that role. So maybe that role is in fact coming back.
Yeah, I mean, it should. I think we talked about the importance of being a playmaker in the middle of the field and what it does to the rest of your offense. I think having guys, and Josh McDaniels knows that better than probably anybody. And outside of, Andy Reid and the offense they run with Kelsey and stuff like that, just being dominant in the middle of the field, moving the chains, and having guys that not only are shifty, but have that all-out speed. We see Pop Douglas, who looks like he can get free in a phone booth, but I don't know if he has the straightaway speed that some of these other guys have. Now, Pop Douglas, I would love to see him with a full season with Drake May, but I think you touched on it last week. Is he closer to Amendola style than he is a Julian Edelman or Wes Welker? Somebody, yes, he's shifty, but he was more of a bigger play guy on the outside for prime of his career. And having guys like Noel or Williams be that in the middle of the field for this offense, plus the Stefon Diggs and what the tight ends are there for. And if, of course, you have your protection up front, now you got somebody on those 3rd and 4s that just are coming free. Or you want to utilize your screen game again. Now you got more guys, more options out there that can get free quick, make the catch, hold on to the ball, most importantly, and have the breakaway speed to now do something. I know I've said this on him many times before. You need more guys that can take a 5-yard slant 40 yards because they just have that extra gear or that step to make a guy miss. And next thing you know, if it's man defense or whatever, now they're running up the sidelines or in the middle of the field. And I think both of these guys check that box. And I think, well, an important thing too here, they both played in elements that were similar to what you're going to deal with if you're playing for the Patriots. We talk about this a lot of times with SEC guys or ACC guys. You don't know how they're going to respond in rainy, cold weather or whatever. You get a guy who played in Iowa. You get another guy that played in Washington. They're dealing with different elements. Now, Jalen Polk came from Washington as well, but I think he'll be better over time too as well. But I think these guys kind of check a box here and fill a need for this team to be a good team in the middle of the football field once again. And I think that'll be a great start for this offense.
All right, let's go to your phones as we wrap it up here. 617-779-0985. You want to talk draft with us? We'll start with John in the car on a local prospect or prospects. John, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Great show. Love the knowledge you're bringing to the table. especially you, Barth. I feel like you could write a magazine for the draft. But real quick,
it's all on 98.5thesportshub.com.
It is.
There you go. So if they end up with like one of the big two, right, Hunter or Carter,
yep.
right? Yeah. If they end up with one of those two, right, they're still going to need a tackle. What about the lineman from BC? I think Marone's a contact, right? Billy O's over there. I think there's a couple kids that maybe they could get later in the draft. Could one of those kids fill in at tackle?
Yeah, thanks for the call, John. So there's a couple BC linemen. The top BC offensive lineman is a kid named Ozzy Trapillo. He'll be in my write-up on the offensive line that'll be up on Tuesday. So I like Trapillo, big kid, 6'8", 320, good reach. He's a right tackle. He played left for a year. It was okay. And then he's really held it down at right tackle, took a big jump last year. I think that's his natural position. Maybe he has some swing tackle as a backup upside. He'll probably be a late day 2 pick. I like Trapillo for the Patriots, but I like him in more of that. We're going to bring him in, develop him for a year behind Morgan Moses, and then he'll take over role. I don't think he's a guy that is, if he is going to play left tackle, it's going to take him a while to get there. And I don't think he's a guy that's going to be an answer for you year one. I do think he makes sense for the Patriots. I do think he'll be on their board. He would more so be, like if they draft 2 tackles, right? You get Campbell at the top, or you get Connolly or Ursery at the end of the first round, and then you're doubling up with Ozzy Trapillo. I think that's probably where he comes into play, but he's just because he's not a starting left tackle doesn't mean he's not a named Patriots fan. No, they absolutely should. He'll be talked about with his team. The other guy to know, and there's a few other BC linemen, but the other guy to know is Drew Kendall. He was their center. Undersized, really smart, physical player, though, compensates for it well. He's going to be picked later on day 3. I had them taking him with their final pick in my most recent mock draft. If they want a project center later on, he's a project center. So he could be in play because, again, Doug Marrone has those connections. So as far as the BC linemen go, I know there's Jack Conley, I think is the other guy. He's a guard. He's late day 3, undrafted. They're all in play for the Patriots. Trapillo I like, but I don't think he's the answer at left tackle.
What about the defensive end from BC? Left tackle.
Donovan Ezeraku?
Yes.
So I do like Ezeraku. Ezeraku has, if I remember correctly, drew some comps to Harold Landry, who obviously succeeded under Vrabel and now has come here. I don't know. It's kind of tough to project where they get him unless they move up for him. Like 4's entirely too early.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. I do think he's off the board by 38. I've talked a lot about how they should move up 38 in the back end of the first. I don't know that they're doing that for a pass rusher. I think if they don't get a tackle at the top, they're doing it for a tackle. If not, are they moving up for a guy like Matthew Golden or Emeka Egbuka? Might make more sense. I think they'd like to have Donovan Ezeraku. I'd like to have Donovan Ezeraku here. I just don't know, unless they really get creative moving around the board, where that happens. Or maybe he falls to 38. Like, I don't think it's likely. I don't think it's unrealistic. Maybe they get him at 38 would probably make the most sense if he falls a little bit.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, if they don't get, we talked about if Carter's there at 4, you take Carter because you want the disruptive edge rusher, whatever. And then possibly moving up back in the first round, no matter whatever scenario it is, moving back into the first.
Yeah.
Do you see them moving back into the first with something outside of a left tackle or a wide receiver? Do you see any other position on this team? They say, we got to get back into the first round to get blank. Like, do you see, is defensive end one of those positions? Is it D tackle? Do you see them moving back into the first to get something other than a wide receiver or a left tackle?
Maybe if there's a defensive end they really like, I could see them doing it. The thing is, this edge class is just so deep. There's not a ton of reason to do that.
Oh, you can wait.
Right, you can wait. Honestly, guard. If they really want to fortify this offensive line, you go tackle at the top, whether it's Campbell, Banks, you trade down a little bit, whatever. Maybe they really like Tyler Booker. They really like Gray Zabel. And I don't think those guys are getting a 38. Those are the top 2 guards, and Zabel might play center too. I wonder, and this is just a guess. I honestly, I'm just thinking of this, but if they're really serious about, we are going to fix the line, you draft a tackle at the top, you move up from 38, and you get a guard, a starting left guard. If the tackle is worth the pick and the guard is worth that pick, you're gonna have Dare I say the offensive line won't just be average. It might be good.
Yeah.
It might be. Now, do they want to commit that much? Because now the wide receiver class is going to drop off a ton. You're probably not getting an impact guy at wide receiver, a guy that's going to do a ton year one at wide receiver. I do think they'd like to make some defensive picks high. You're not doing that. It's a lot of assets in one spot. But if you're going to spend a lot of assets in one spot, the offensive line's as good a place to do it as any, right? So
yeah.
To me, it's tackler, wide receiver, whatever they don't get at the top, moving up for the other one. But maybe guard. I could see that. Steve in Fall River actually wants to talk positions in the draft. Steve, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm not a draft Nick. I don't watch college football. I do want to say, where were these people that are promoting local product when Matt Milano was coming out of BC? Was anybody calling up? Then why don't we get this Matt Milano, who turns out to be one of the better linebackers in the AFC in the 5th round? So let's the other thing I want, and I just want to make a comment about that. The other thing I wanted to say is this tackle at the top of the draft is completely insane. It's positively insane. You do not take an offensive lineman. I don't care if it's a left tackle. I don't care if he's Tony Boselli grade. You do not take him with the 4th pick. Does anybody know where the starting left tackle for the championship team was? The Philadelphia Eagles. He's drafted in the 7th round.
Yeah, that was like a weird, fluky thing. He was an
there's
international player.
There's nothing weird. He was the 7th round. Joe Tooney played left tackle. We kind of know where he was drafted, right? Was he the 4th pick in the draft?
No, but Joe Tooney's not a tackle. He's a guard.
Well, guess what? Even worse. They were telling me that this kid might not be able to play left tackle. It's on the show. We'll have to slide him to God. You do not take. Well, we don't have to just wait with Kansas City. We think Buffalo's left tackle was taken. 63rd pick.
And that's why they didn't win.
Right, and that's why. All right, thanks for the call, Steve.
Why they
kept running left and it wasn't working.
You don't win with one left tackle. You need a unit of 5 players. You could have 3 Hall of Famers and 2 stiffs. They'll find the 2 stiffs.
So real quick, before you hang up, who are you taking?
Yeah, Steve, who are you taking?
I'm taking an impact player. If this is Abdul Carter, he's a defensive lineman that rushes. You have to say, what does the position that you're going to pick impact the team? We know quarterback's 1. I would say cornerback is 2nd. I would say defensive edge rush is 3rd. Linebacker 4th. Some people will say tackle gets thrown in there, left tackle. The issue is, where can you find these people in the draft? You do not have to pick 4th in the draft to find a starting left tackle on a championship team. You have to look at the last champion. They had a 7th round player playing their left tackle. It did not impact.
Okay, Steve, you got to hang on because I need to find a number. 51% of the starting left tackles in the last 5 years are drafted in the 1st round. Only 15% were drafted on day 3.
Okay, well, guess what? What about the champion?
All right. What about the champion? What about they found an international player. They did a great job developing him. You can't count on that. What about Tom Brady was drafted 199th? Were the Chiefs idiots for picking Mahomes, or they did? What about the champion?
Yeah, you can't do champion by champion. First of all,
I let that hang on way too long. I just wanted to find that number to make sure you heard it.
You can't go champion by champion, especially if you're a Patriots fan, because they just kind of blow everything up. But the Eagles have basically all the best players from the SEC that they've taken in the 1st round for the past half decade or so. You have elite receivers. You have elite offensive line in general. You have the best running back in the league. You have an elite quarterback. The Eagles were elite everywhere. And it's because of 1st round talent of being able to pick those pieces up. But that's one team. If the Patriots went out, okay, let's say they get Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. You mentioned impact players. They take Travis Hunter. Randy Moss doesn't have Super Bowls. Megatron doesn't have Super Bowls. There's so many Hall of Fame. Terrell Owens, elite Hall of Fame worthy guys in the Hall of Fame that didn't make much impact when it came to winning. Probably because the team they weren't didn't have left tackles. But you have to have something so the quarterback can be an impact. If you're not protecting the quarterback, your biggest impact player won't impact the game at all. You have to protect them. And because of this team isn't the Eagles. They can't throw in the 7th round pick. If they had Eagles talent, yeah, you can pick anybody and put them over there. This team isn't the Eagles. They have to find a building block and have an anchor that then now they can put 7th-round picks around that guy. But the Patriots right now aren't in the same situation as the Super Bowl contenders who've built their team on first-round talent. This team isn't in the same situation, and that's a bad comparison. But with no left tackle, you don't win any games. It's that simple.
No, I feel bad. I let that hang on too long, but I want a number. And by the way, instead of best team, how about best players? All-pro team. Tristan Wirfs, first-round pick. Penei Sewell, first-round pick. Lane Johnson, first-round pick. There's not enough players. You got to take them in the first round. Can we squeeze this call in real quick? I feel bad. He's been hanging on. Marcel in the car, real quick on the tackles. Good morning.
Hey, how's it going? I just wanted to get your take on Josh Simmons. Everything that I've seen and read about him, he, without the injury, would have been a top 5 projection. So is he someone where you would trade up from 38 to get him late in the first? Or what's your take on him?
Yeah, thanks for the call, Marcel. He would be great without the injury, but he was injured. Like, you have to factor that in. I haven't seen the medicals. I would worry about using a first-round pick at a position you need where the guy maybe can't play year one. If the medical's clear, I'm in. We're not going to see him, so he's a tough one to project. All right, yeah, we're running way behind. Leroy and Joe are here. I want to get them in here. Cerrone, good stuff as always. Kyle, good stuff as always. You missed any of the show, it's up on the Sports Hub YouTube page or Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff, wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back next week, same time, 8 o'clock on Sunday. Until then, for everybody here, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.
More Sunday Kickoff coming up on the Sports Hub. When the snow and cold weather disappear, that's when trouble appears in your foundation. Cracks in concrete or drywall? Call Ramjack